Alrighty, beautiful people. Howdy, howdy. Happy Wednesday afternoon, potentially morning if you are dialing in from another country. Um, Excited to get kicked off in a few minutes. We'll probably get started at 12:05, but appreciate y'all joining early. While we're waiting, Kayla and I thought it'd be fun to do a cheeky trivia question, and you'll see why I'm choosing this topic. The question is, where was the first Ironman triathlon held? So if you have no idea, just pick a random location. You might be right. Bonus points if you can get the year it was held. That's probably what's harder. Geez, they're both pretty hard.
Is this going into the chat, is it? Or we got some
Yes, yeah, popping it in the
nice.
chat.
Yep.
So if anyone's brave enough to take a guess, we have an elite athlete in the audience. I see Sam Wesley. Mate, I feel like you might know the answer to this. For context, Sam has swum the English Channel. Sam, mate, I'm calling you out because I feel like you've got the best chance at getting this. Where was the first Ironman triathlon held? Drop in the chat. Obviously, Harrison's typing.
Without using Google or ChatGPT.
Yeah, yeah. There's no points for that. Or folks still guessing, thinking somewhere in America. Somewhere in America. Okay. You know what, Harrison, mate, I'll give it to you. It is in America, but bonus points if you can get the state. So we'll move there. Which state in America was the first Ironman triathlon held? Can you get it? If no one gets it, I will reveal in California.
It was
Good
actually on 2
statistical
weekends
guess.
ago. The whole the
The
biggest
original one.
world event. Yeah, well, not the original one, but it's like where everyone goes every year, like all the pros come together. So it was very flooded on the socials, that's for sure. But I'm sure my algorithm is just feeding that up as well.
Yeah, ready for the algo. Folks, the answer, and so Harrison on the money, right country, but the answer was in fact Hawaii. First ever triathlon, 1978, and they wanted to try and work out who was fittest, runners, swimmers, or cyclists. So they had an event where they pulled all three together, and now every second high performer I meet in sales is either doing marathons, triathlons, or like Sam in the audience, swimming just crazy distances. Folks, we'll kick off now. Excited to have you all tuning in, and for those who are listening to this in the future, hello from the past. My name's Dan, one of the co-founders at Early Work and now head of sales, and really excited to be here with Kayla, who is the first ever founding account executive at MoveWorks in Australia, now selling to major enterprises. Kayla's done some awesome work when it comes to content around tech sales and sales careers. We connected through that, and from our initial conversations, I think something that came up is the way in which sales reps reach out, to companies, especially you start to get towards the top end of town, doesn't to get the best results, you can't just do what everyone else is doing. Inboxes are getting flooded, calls are getting flooded, emails, etc. And so thought it'd be really cool to do a session walking through how Kayla, coming from unconventional career switcher background, has been able to do quite well in sales in a short period of time using a couple of outreach methods that are a little bit less conventional. So how we're going to break down today's session is first 20 minutes, we're going to do kind of a rundown of 5 tips around outreach and kind of unconventional methods that can work well. And then the second half, we'll just do a bit of a more casual AMA, pop in any questions specific to your sales scenario, and Kayla's happy to give direct feedback on those. Myself as well. Cool. Yeah, if there are questions that come up throughout, if as we're saying something oh, hang on, what do they mean by that? I want to learn more about that. I have a question about that relative to my own role. Be selfish, chuck it in the questions tab, and we'll get to those at the end. Cool. Kayla, over to you for a bit more about the journey and the story so far.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for having me on this forum, and really excited to speak with you all. To kick things off, Sam, I'm very excited to chat after this of how far you've swum and follow that journey. That sounds very exciting. But a bit about my journey, and before I sort of get into that and obviously jump into some of the tactics today, I think for everyone that's listening, I appreciate that everyone, their role that they're in, could be different to how you go to market, whether it's more SMB or enterprise and things like this. I think a lot of the tactics and what I'm trying to share today is hopefully they're all translatable depending on who you're reaching out to in the market as well. Because when I first started, I was an SDR, then I've gone from that mid market and then now to enterprise as well. And I feel like a lot of this has been translatable in my career path. So a little bit about my journey in sales and life is I grew up with my grandparents, and really I highlight that because they weren't a part. I grew up and they didn't understand phones, they didn't understand technology and things like this. And I think when I was growing up, tech sales or even the tech industry was something that was never spoken about or known about, that you could get into that sort of career. As I sort of went and found, as I went older and left high school and trying to find out which, career path to tackle, I did want to become a professional soccer player. I didn't quite make it into the W League there. And really, though, I highlight that is because a lot of my, I think, capabilities and core characteristics around, team sports, fitness, and these sort of elements has sort of translated into sales for myself, whether it's being competitive or organized and things like that. And I think there are a lot of the traits, because certainly from when I got into tech sales, I didn't really have any experience or background to make it into tech sales. But when folks are looking to crack into, I think managers and companies are really looking at those characteristic traits. Now, I essentially got fired from my first corporate role, and that set me back a little bit, and I was quite devastated and really lost in what career path I wanted to take. But from there, essentially, I found my way into the tech industry, and it quite transparently, it was because of two factors. One, I was really lucky enough to be able to get introduced to someone that told me they made $700,000 in 1 year, and my brain to fathom that someone made that much in 1 year was mind blowing to me. And though how they spoke to me about it, it made it very realistic that I could do that myself as well. And so part of, that breakthrough, I similar thing and maybe experience that you all are going through, and early work here is to support, is I went and applied at many, many SDR sort of BDR roles. And I was very grateful enough to start my tech industry first career there in Splunk for my first SDR role. And that was very much, I had a year of about 6 months doing a lot of inbound leads, and then the next 6 months with a lot of outbound leads, helping my core AEs that I was helping gather inbound and leads for. Now, I think what's really, really cool about I am 5 years, pretty much October 1st was the fifth year I've been working in tech sales. And as you can see here on the slide pack, I essentially started my first job as an SDR at Splunk on around $75,000 a year. And, quite transparently, today over the past 3 years, I've consistently made over $350,000. So it's very achievable, I think, to be able to go and make that sort of money. And as you would all probably be aware of, or if you're not, Australia's average income can be anywhere from $60,000 to $80,000. And this is why I'm so passionate about people getting into this industry, because I think it can really transform your life, and it's certainly changed mine a lot. So I was the first AE essentially at MoveWorks, and that came with a lot of new learnings. I think because I think one core piece is I never had an SDR actually helping support me get leads, but also there was no marketing here locally in region, so I had to get really creative on how I could book meetings for the organization and therefore close these deals as well. But a little bit about me outside of life, outside of work, is really I've just recently, maybe it's a quarter life crisis, as we like to see in these reels and memes that I see on social media. But this year has very much been a lot more around getting connected in the fitness industry, as I was obviously doing competitive sport growing up. And I think it's really core to keep that, hobby outside of work, because we can all, I think work can get very stressful, and I'm really passionate about sales. It's a very high performing, stressful job. Like it certainly is. We're always having to meet monthly or quarterly targets, and I think the pressure can come upwards and downwards. And certainly for me, having fitness as an outlet to release those endorphins and stress, it's really helpful for me. So I completed a 100K backyard ultra. I've just recently finished my first half Ironman, and from all you all on the call today, I'm looking to expand and grow my social media, Instagram and YouTube account. But I think the core piece there is really demonstrating how I'm working in tech sales and going after some big fitness goals. So yeah, check those out. And then really just core beliefs of mine. Um, Sales is hard. Like there is no doubt that sales is hard, but I truly believe when I was working in operations and got fired from my first corporate job and things like that, it was because I was in a job where I felt like you could almost just be sitting there and not getting the most out of yourself because you could almost fake what you were doing. Sales, there's no hiding. Like you get the best version out of yourself. You're hitting your quota or you're not, and it's constant everyday improvements. Whether you're hearing that from your boss, colleagues around you. So I really believe in this industry and this career that we're in, you have to continuously learn new platforms, refining your outreach, and keep booking meetings, which is essentially what helps you get promoted as well. And I really think consistency wins long term over working in this career as well.
Yeah, awesome reflections. Definitely agree with the principles, and it's funny how like a lot of them very much translate to like endurance sport. Like I think this, sales is one of those things where in some roles you have to do kind of like lots of different things. Like sales, sometimes you just need to do like a similar sort of thing, but like consistently showing up every single day and putting in the right inputs. It's kind of like isn't like similar to like I guess like running, swimming, cycling. Like obviously there are tactics and things you can tweak, and that's exactly what we're going to jump into. But there is an underlying thing of like you just have to like keep putting in like a similar consistent level of input, and that's like the single most important thing. Cool. What we'll do, jumping into tip number one. Okay, I know when we had chatted originally about like sales methods, obviously like the very standard method of sales executive is that classic cold calling approach, and I think it still works like very well to this day. But the thing about hey, how do you diversify different channels? One thing you and I were chatting about was obviously like LinkedIn becoming a lot more important. I think for both of us has made a big difference. And something you talked about was like a lot of people when they think about LinkedIn outreach just go straight for DMs, but you kind of like your approach is, I guess, like a little bit different. Tell us more about, I guess, like how you think about, I guess, the content side of LinkedIn in relation to sales.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think before I just quickly jump into this, Dan, just to wrap up your last statement around the endurance and long piece of this, I think when you do first, like I remember when I first got into a sales development role and I had to book 20 meetings in that month or quarter, whatever the metrics were, it can be very overwhelming in those first 1 to 3 months. But the longer you are in the role, you start to build up these more warm leads. So it's like the longer you're in the role, it starts to almost get this flywheel effect. So hopefully all these tactics help build that up as well. But really, since I've actually been more leaning into posting on social media on LinkedIn specifically to help build my brand. But it's not because I want to build my brand for myself. I'm obviously in trying to book meetings as that's part of my core job. And I felt like when I actually started reaching out on LinkedIn 5 years ago when I first became an SDR, it is so there's a lot of noise already over the past 5 years. Like I felt like it's changed a lot in how you could actually access people 5 years ago to today. And so I think a really important piece when you are connecting with people on LinkedIn and you're trying to find these high quality leads that you're trying to book meetings with is, back 5 years ago, I probably would send them an email or a message straight away to basically, hey, let's book a meeting. I think today I definitely look at taking the really long term approach, and long term approach can be 2 weeks. It's just not on the first date, essentially. So you're looking to connect with those people, and I think what's important when you've connected with those folks on LinkedIn is like start to engage with their stuff. And this is very sort of simple things, but I think a lot of people don't have the patience to be able to do that. So being able to connect with folks, like their stuff, maybe engage, comment on their things, and just have familiarity in seeing your face, them seeing your name and things like that. And it's really important because as we all hear on as SDRs, we say it's at least 7 to 10 touches before you even book a meeting, and maybe that stat's gone up. But I think it's really important for them to highlight a face to the person that you're trying to reach out to, and potentially, therefore, you end up booking that lead through email as a source. But I think right now, if you can follow the folks on LinkedIn, what I actually do as well is once I've connected with them, I can go down to right at the bottom of the page and even see the other companies that they're following. And I think you can start to tie all these little bits of pieces to really tailor a great outreach after 1 or 2 weeks once you've started to engage and learn what they engage with as well. So, yeah, a really important piece there is just not to start asking for meetings on day one, and take the time to, directly message them when it's the right time for them. And maybe that's when they've just recently done a post and they're actually online. So it's being really tactically aware of when they're using the platform and how they're using the platform as well.
Yeah, I think it's something that like has always stuck with me on this front is like 90% of the prospects that are relevant for you are not ready to buy now. And to your point, like okay, having 7 touch points, you'd much rather they've heard about you before you really like need to reach out to them. Before it's like, oh hey, there's like this critical like buying event. You'd rather kind of get to that point and they already have this like, familiarity with Movo because they've like seen your face pop up a couple times. It feels like a trusted brand. It's just like it doesn't feel like it's cold anymore. Whereas if the first time they're seeing you is you going like, "Hey, let's have a meeting," it feels like okay, I'm getting sold to. Whereas if it's like, "Oh, hey, this is someone who's been in my network, I've seen them around," yeah, like this, the whole thing of like how do you turn like outbound to inbound is like slowly slide along that spectrum. So I love this idea of just like, yeah, we do it all the time. It's like kind of practically connecting with your ICP without asking anything.
Yep.
Resonate with this one a lot. I think another on like a similar vein around like building relationships, a big piece you touch on, and especially the enterprise level, is around, I guess, like the event side of things. Um, One tactic, and I hadn't seen this before, so I was generally fascinated hearing it. You talked about this piece of when you're trying to invite executives to events, you'll often just do a direct calendar invite cold. Like, how did you stumble upon that as a tactic? And yeah, I guess tell us a little bit more about the thinking behind it.
Yeah. So I I think why I stumbled along it, transparently being the first AE here locally in region, I didn't have as much marketing support and things like that. And so I had to get really creative of like, how am I going to get someone's attention, being one person individually in this country, to try and get folks to an in-person meeting? Like not even a webinar, an in-person meeting. That's a really big next step for someone to come to on a cold outreach. Now I appreciate that a lot of folks and they would be getting a lot of emails. And if you think of these really high senior executives, they are so busy. Like they basically even have EAs and they're not even monitoring their emails, right? So I think what I've been able to do when I've got marketing events coming up or webinars or in-person events is essentially I send them an email with the details. But what I look to do as a second or third outreach is I actually just send them the calendar invite. Now I send the calendar invite so it goes up on their calendar. And I think a few facets why I do this. One, they finally see it come up on their calendar when they're looking at their day and they go like, I need to respond to this because it's sitting in my calendar. They actually either accept because they say, hey, like most people don't reply to your emails because they're busy, right? But if they can just click a button and accept it, what I then do is actually fill out the form for them and help register for them. So it's like minimizing all these clicks and buttons. All they need to know is like, I want to go to that event, and then they're going to rock up to that. I think another piece though that also happens is that they actually decline the invite. And I think that's also really positive if they decline the invite because one, they haven't actually replied to my email yet, but now they've declined my calendar invite, and I can know that they're actually receiving my emails because sometimes you don't know if they're actually reading your emails or not. And the other piece to that is then I can actually follow up and say, hey, I've seen that you declined the invite. I appreciate maybe you can't make this time, but is there someone else on your team that you would like to invite, or is there another time that we can actually book a meeting if that time doesn't work for you? And so that is like the main draw out of this is like more times than not, I get the decline, but the follow up from that, I actually book the meeting with either someone directly under them or with them, but just a 15-20 minute meeting, which has worked really well for me.
Yeah, this one's awesome. Because I think like obviously if it's a one-on-one meeting invite, it's probably a bit too intense, a bit too hectic. But with something like an event, like people would understand like being on like a list by default. Like an event is something that normally you have a lot of people attending. If it seems like it's relevant and you've actually like targeted the ICP, I think it's awesome. Like in like a pretty scalable way, you get like a yes/no signal from a lot of people, and it's cool that yeah you call it like even the no's. It tells you okay that person's like seen the email, checked it, they've like at least looked at MoveWorks and thought about it, even if it's only for 5 seconds. And so, yeah, and I love the piece as well of like even if they're declining, it doesn't mean their company isn't interested. Like that's just one person, their time and their availability. So yeah, thought this one was super smart. And honestly, it's something I think like when we next do kind of an event for the more enterprise side of things, something we definitely should be trying ourselves. Um, I guess related to the event one, um, one thing you kind of talked about is like, if you are in a sales role where your company is running events, this piece around connecting attendees together. Because often we think like, okay, I'm running an event, I'm going to reach out to a bunch of prospects and just kind of like chuck them in an event together and then like see at the end who's interested. But you kind of talked about this like relationship building piece a bit. Like, yeah, be keen to hear like your approach here, like why you do it and what sort of results you've seen from it.
Yeah. So I think the main thing when we have people come in person to events, and as a sales rep, right, the people at the event don't want to talk to me really, right? Like they're like, of course they're there to build a relationship, but most importantly, what I want to get out of that is have already a customer that is a customer of the product that I'm selling, meet a prospect that is looking to buy the solution. And the best thing I can do is have those two people connect with one another. And I think what's
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
so like I'm therefore not doing the selling at the event, and I'm someone that wants everyone to have a good time. And I heard something the other day of like when I when you go to an event and you have to sit down at the table, you want to be able to look left and right and feel happy with the people that you're sitting next to. You don't want to feel like awkward and, not be there, right? So I'm trying to create those connections for people when they come to my event, that they feel comfortable, or at least they can look onto someone's face recognition and say, hey, I actually connected with that person, and therefore they can start that conversation with people, because like we all don't like going to events that we don't know anyone. So I think what I like to do is, let's say I have, even if it's two prospects and they're not a customer of MoveWorks, but they may be from the same industry, and the same organization size, I like to actually, because I'm usually connected with both of them on LinkedIn, I would actually create a group chat and say, hey Jenny, I see that you're coming to the event, and also so is Helen, and I think you both would connect very well. You have similar job descriptions, whatever you know about them, and connect them. And I think that lands really well most of the time as well, um, because again, if you can connect more people to talk about the product, what I've seen in person at events is when when a prospect is talking about their problem and the other prospect has the same problem, and then they're at an event that your vendor is helping solve that solution, they can almost mingle with one another. That's almost like doing the selling for them. So I think this is a really key piece to do, and it encourages, what I see this help with is like the turn up rate being much higher as well at events.
Yeah, this one's awesome. I think the important piece here is kind of like someone who is using the product, who is a customer, is going to be like an even better salesperson than you, like a peer who's at the same level. So it's important. It's not just like connecting to attendees who might just like, hit it off. It's actually like, hey, here's someone you want to be using your product ideally, or you think could be a good fit. And then here's someone who's already using it. And like the implicit conversations they have and the trust that's built there, they go, hang on a minute, this person seems pretty smart, pretty switch on. They're using MoveWorks, even if they don't chat like directly about it, there's still an implicit thing of like, they work with high quality people that I want to be more like.
Absolutely.
So,
I think,
so that's what super smart.
yeah, and selling like to the enterprise industry as well, like you need to go very wide and build that trust as a trusted partner. And I think people that come to events that are customers, they're so happy to speak with people because they're proud. They've brought in a solution that's maybe helped them get promoted in their organization, right? So they're very willing to speak with other prospects and think about this whole world that we work in. And once you start selling software and things like that, people are almost there like recruiting and wanting to see other people, and maybe they can help them out. Maybe it's a partner that can help deploy it. So yeah, it's great to do those events.
Awesome stuff. Kind of stepping a little bit kind of away. I know we've like talked a fair about the event side of things. The other obviously because we talk about LinkedIn, we talk about events. Email is a channel where I think a lot of SDRs now with kind of this like mass AI influx are finding it challenging to like hit inboxes stand out. There's all this like kind of deliverability stuff. Your approach to emails was very different to kind of like what I'd typically seen. And so yeah, keen to like hear your approach around like honestly just being like very clear that it's like a sales email, being actually like in some ways like still like pitchy, but like I mean still focus on the problem. Like talk us through I guess like the journey you've been on there, because I'm sure like when you started in sales to now it's probably been a lot of change in how you do emails.
Yeah, I think the first thing is like we all receive, even if it's more so in our personal email like inbox, we all get sales or pitches in email. And I think what you should do when you're reading those emails is like, how do you feel? And I always feel like, oh, this is like a sales email. And so like I just try to break that wall down straight away. And actually, and I want to preface this with I appreciate some companies have their own way that they like to put subject lines in, and you have to do the corporate policy and things like that. But I remember I would put into my subject lines, no BS sales pitch. And like I was so bold with like basically trying to get their attention. And I actually had a lot of chief information officers like CIOs and things like that reply to that and were just like, ha ha ha, appreciate this. And I just felt like one, an executive also would usually formally reply to an email or not reply at all. And I felt like just having that bit of banter or straight forwardness in that email subject line, it actually broke down their personality to be a bit more friendly back to the email as well. So I think just get really creative with the subject lines. I barely see it work when it's like everyone's putting AI into their subject lines. Like you're trying to make it sound so like fluffy with these words. I think from the corporate side of things of how you're trying to pitch your product, I think just make it really simple, really transparent, and really relatable when you're reaching out to these folks to get their attention.
Yeah, I think the two B's that stick out here is like one's like just like the radical honesty. It's like everyone knows it's a pitch, people are kind of dressing it up, but a pitch is fine if it's relevant. And what I like here is that like the one sentence you're putting in is not like one sentence on like a, hey, here's what our product does, but hey, one sentence on the problem you solve. Is if you just be like, hey, it's kind of like help companies with this specific problem, if you have that specific problem, let me know if it's worth a conversation. It's kind of like you just kind of easily filter out who's relevant versus who's not. Like execs are time poor; they don't want to read a huge email. It's much easier to respond to something that's shorter. One thing we've even seen here is like with a lot of emails, like especially with execs using like a CTA that's like close ended. It's like something that can be like a like yes no answer rather than like you see a lot where it's like you're trying to like explore like hey tell me more about hey how does that compare to your experience, what have you guys seen. People don't want to write a paragraph as a response. You want to make it easy for them to just be like either yes or no, like are you the right person, yes no, okay, if I sent X through, yes, no, something super simple. Um, Rohan, I still got a question there. We'll jump, if you chuck that question tab, we'll jump through it as part of the questions at the end. Final tip that I think we were running through is less about the outreach itself, but more like, hey, people the SDRs put so much effort into booking meetings, and then you have 20% of meetings that don't even show up, right? Or you have these meetings that you like go to all the effort to do, and then like the right people aren't actually in the meeting. One thing you talked about is like really important, especially with bigger accounts, is before a disco, you're actually doing a map of the org chart to know exactly, hey, I've got this like golden time with them to like understand them, maybe pitch a little bit. You want to ensure you know exactly who's there. But I guess what does this process look like? So when you book in a meeting, what does that like org chart mapping look like for you?
Yeah, exactly right. So I think again, depending how you're quoted or potentially selling a solution, you could be selling like you could get booked a meeting for like the IT department, the HR department, however that looks like. But I think two facets to why I do this, and when I was an SDR, and I still do it obviously as an AE. But I think most importantly, while why doing it as an SDR is because firstly, I think if you go to the effort, let's say you book it with someone sort of mid manager, you should be able to in sales nav, you can see out who reports to who and up and down the chain. And you should have at least another four people when you're coming to that meeting. You could name drop them and say, "Hey, yeah, I actually saw that. This person potentially looked after the IT service desk or whatever functionality that you're looking to sell into. Would they also benefit from this? Because I would love you to broker that conversation that we've just spoken about, and I can have that conversation with them as well. So you're trying to go a lot broader in the account and book these other meetings. And I think it also brings a lot of professionalism that you've done a lot of discovery before just rocking up to meet this one person, right? So they want to be able to feel like you are consulting them and you are coming along, that you've done the research of being able to understand the other people that they have to work with. Because when you are selling to enterprise organizations, I'm telling you now, you have to sell to like 20 different people, 20 different stakeholders that you have to get confidently all aligned to and on the same boat to be able to, sign a contract at the end of this. So being able to do that early on helps a lot. I think the other piece to it is if you can bring this to your account executive that you are working for, right? It shows that I just think that partnership between the SDR and the AE and that you've done a bit of that groundwork for them, I think that goes a long way that the account executive would appreciate being able to work with the SDR, and it sort of helps promote yourself because when you go into that account executive role, these are a lot of the tasks that you'll have to be doing a part of your account mapping when you're trying to sell into the top tier or the top four banks or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, good implicit piece there around like at the end of the day, like a lot of your success as an SDR comes also down to like having a good relationship with your AE. It's like the more that you invest in helping them, the more they're probably going to invest back in like helping, guide you, give you tips and feedback. So yeah, I think this one is like super smart, and like yeah, I think very often like people get a disco and think that's like obviously like the goal as an SDR, but if it's with the wrong person, it might not end up closing, and you don't kind of get that kicker, or kind of get the right sort of business outcome.
Hey, Dan,
Cool.
do you mind if I
Shoot,
just say one last thing? Because this is just recently
go for it.
starting to happen to me since obviously posting more on LinkedIn. And
Yes.
as everyone, I think I push everyone to start posting more on LinkedIn. But how I tackle that, it's very much like I'm trying to post around professional and personal, or it's personal and professional, right? So it's always blending in that work element to something I'm doing outside of work. But what's been really cool to see is my last post on LinkedIn, which was yesterday. I was talking about work and triathlons, but I had connected with three people that I was trying to book meetings with, and they never responded to my DMs or something like that. And they've gone ahead and commented on my LinkedIn post.
So
And
good.
I've gone like,
So
I'm
good.
sitting there like, how cool is that? And then now we've kicked off that conversation. They've now engaged with it's obviously something I know that they would relate with. Obviously, they're doing triathlons as well. And so it's been that bridge connection because they've continuously seen my face. So I just wanted to highlight that piece. It's yeah, really exciting where we're going into this social proof of being able to book meetings as well. And one last one, it's because this is just recently happened too, Dan, is that I think companies and corporate organizations are starting to realize that them just posting a whole bunch of marketing stuff is not resonating, and the personal brand, how to book meetings is really resonating. That even my
Yeah.
company reached out to me to help, you know, actually advertise some of my Instagram, my LinkedIn posts because it was had a lot of reach around the MoveWorks brand, but it was tying it back to me as a person working at MoveWorks. So I think companies are really coming around to being able to um, post more freely on LinkedIn, and you shouldn't be afraid of what you're posting on there professionally and personally as well.
Yeah. Preaching to the choir here. Like, I would say, and the thing you mentioned about like unlocking deals that have been like frozen, super powerful. Like, I remember like you're making posts where it's like there are people who've like ghosted calls, emails, LinkedIn messages from me, and they'll just comment on the post. And off the back of that comment, I just like re-engage them and they're happy to have a chat. It's just crazy. It's
Yeah.
in like when people, because I think like a lot of times for a prospect, like when they get a sales rep reaching out to them, they're not thinking about them as a human being. They're thinking about like, oh, here's a person who's like just another person like trying to sell me something or trying to get my attention or whatever. But when they're scrolling through their feed and they see a post, they're just looking like, hey, here's like a human being going through like a cool experience, sharing a cool lesson or journey, and they go like, oh, actually, like I'm happy to chat with this person. I think yeah, the personal content has made a big difference. It doesn't just have to be the business content. I think like having the mix is really powerful. So yeah, very strongly resonate with this. I know there's a couple questions in the questions tab so far, so we can probably jump into a couple of those. So starting off, first one was from Harrison Bishop. So Harris is obviously a founder, and kind of like running his own business. He kind of asked, in terms of the webinar events you're running, what do they usually consist of? Do you follow a particular structure for them? How often do you run them? So I think this was in relation to kind of some of those earlier tips around like, hey, you're running an event, you're inviting execs to it, or you're connecting them. First, I guess the first clarifying is like, are those like virtual events or physical events? And if they are virtual, how are they structured?
Mm. So if I go back to when I started in the tech industry, it was like the start of COVID. So they were all virtual meetings. I think I'll get to the answer in a moment here, but I think a lot has gone to more in-person events again, and then it's like more of the company running more of the webinar type style events. But essentially, what style are the webinar? It's I'm I'm getting people there to those events to be able to watch a demo essentially of the product that I'm selling. Now, I think it's important to run those regularly because a lot of people don't want to have one-on-one meetings because they feel like they could be getting sold to, or that, you're basically, I'm getting on a call and I'm trying to do all this discovery from them. But what happens is if I'm getting them to come to a webinar and they're seeing a demo and maybe 50 other people are going to be there, it's a soft environment for them to be able to get a bit more understanding of the product before having to officially engage with myself there. So I'm sending out, usually we use outreach as a email sequencing tool, and I'm usually sending out 3 emails in sort of one email thread. And I think it's what's really important is like I'm doing this 4 to 5 weeks out from the event. I just like even this webinar that we're on, like this was posted weeks ago, and you have to have those constant touch points leading up to the event to keep remembering people to join. So I think it's really important that you have multiple outreaches, whether that's LinkedIn, emails, and phoning them to be able to push them to register for your event.
Yeah, I'd say like on this one from like an event structure perspective, like obviously like virtual and physical can both work. Like the general trend I've seen in terms of event structure is like if you're targeting more enterprise, it tends to be more in person, and then like SMB, virtual often can make more sense because you can invite a wider range of audiences, um, obviously people in different locations. I think from a structure perspective, like sharing reflections that kind of work well for us. Like for enterprise, a big piece has been like, I think everyone goes to like these like, you have like the classic fireside chat format, right? Where like you have some impressive, like it is good, obviously, if you can bring in an external speaker with a very impressive like background, resume, brand, like that's going to bring you attention beyond just your own company's brand. So like, how do you like increase that surface area? One thing I found is that works really well in terms of like events where you actually build deeper relationships, build deeper trust, is getting um, participants, like getting audience members to be participants. So like the round table format where it's like you bring
Mhm.
together a bunch of IT leaders, sales leaders, operational leaders, marketing leaders, and you get them discussing and sharing, hey, what's working for each other. Like all of a sudden, when you can get those events where it's like people are interacting and actually sharing their own expertise, then someone walks away not just having learned from one person, but having learned from 10.
Yeah,
So I think
spot
from
on,
our
Dan.
side, I think we're seeing work quite well.
Yeah, in-person events, you want the mix of like customers and prospects, not just all prospects there, because that can get pretty
Yeah.
out of hand. Or you would at least need a like Dan, I would want you as a founder there at the round table, so at least you can bring industry insights there if they're more so all prospects, for example. And that's sort of how we did that in the early days when we had no customers. We had our CEO come, and the whole big bang of that round table was our CEO speaking about AI from America into Australia. And then you are spot on where ideally with the webinars, I think people come the most when you have a customer there doing a fireside chat. It's the most engaging format for a virtual event.
Yeah, definitely. Um, the I guess remaining 2 questions. One from Rohin was around the email side of things. You obviously talked about, hey, these very short, punchy emails, straight to the point, no bullshit sales pitch. Here's the problem I'm solving. What are the CTAs that you've seen have had kind of the best response rates, whether that's specific wording or just like certain approaches there? Like at the end of an email, what do you say?
Yeah, so I'll say like back to the calendar invite thing too. I'll start off soft saying like, does next Tuesday work? Like, can I slot in a time for next Tuesday? I think leave it open ended so then they can come back to you obviously with like a different time. Honestly, I'm that direct personality where I also just send, like, let's say I've seen them open up my email like a couple times and I get the vibe, or like I've even had a bit of their warm lead or this intended. Potentially they're on the edge of wanting to have a meeting with me. I'll just send them over that invite back to even doing the events and just say, hey, I found like I'm free between 1 to 5 p.m. on Tuesday next week. I've slotted in 30 minutes for next Tuesday. Hopefully this works for you, but feel free to propose a new time. And usually that prompts them again to just like propose a new time on the calendar, um, and hopefully that meeting's booked in instead of, you want to avoid the whole back and forth on email 10 times to try lock in a time. It's very frustrating.
Yeah, so, sometimes it's like often with execs, I also find like if you are asking for a time, um, like I just ask them like, what is the best way to find 30 minutes in your calendar next week? And like that could be sometimes they loop in an EA, sometimes they have a calendar link. It's like they'll have like different preferences. You can also like obviously offer up times. Often when like execs are time poor, sometimes just like they have to do this all the time, so they probably just have like a default way of doing it. Just like make it easy for them. Um,
Yeah. It's certainly relevant on like, it depends totally on the title you're reaching out to. Like, I know with the more strategic accounts that I start to work with, it's like I almost it's gonna be very difficult to get the executive buyer on the call, right? And to your point, like professionally working with their executive assistant, you're actually more likely to get a meeting booked working with the EA than
Yeah,
directly with that
yeah,
executive buyer.
definitely. Final one, and then we'll kind of call time there and do a wrap up. Corey mentioned, you know, in outbound, are you ever using video or voice as opposed to text-based content? Like in your own approach, have you found that that's worked well for you, or do you find that actually like email, LinkedIn events, you're able to get what you need?
The video, I have not started the video side of things yet, but I'm big on texting. I as soon as I call them, I'm texting them saying, "Hey, it's Kayla from MoveWorks," like, and then whatever my message is. But yeah, big on text messages. That works well. That works a lot. I would actually say the most meetings I get booked are from text or LinkedIn. Like email would be the third tier of me booking meetings for sure, unless it's I'm sort of looping in a group of people that I've seen. Like I almost loop in two people, then I feel like the one person has to respond to the email thread because it puts pressure on someone to reply to that.
Yeah. Love that. I think like, yeah, similar for us where like, yeah, as in text plays like a big role, LinkedIn as well, and email, all powerful channels. On the like video and voice stuff specifically, have seen on LinkedIn, it's kind of, it depends on the persona. I think salespeople I've found like with voice often respond well. Like doing a voice on LinkedIn stands out from just doing text. Like it's like a second message. Like you send them a connection request, you send something after. We did actually, funny enough, yeah, we had 2 meetings booked this week off like LinkedIn video. So we used to do it with Looms, but it's like a bit hectic having to like go to a separate platform to view a video. The LinkedIn native video feature, you just drop. I literally saw one this morning. You just like drop it as a message, you know, casual, it's human. You can definitely get some decent results there. I haven't seen that work as well over email. Like when people send a video over email off with links, it kind of gets caught by email filtering. But LinkedIn native video, I have seen like some results, but yeah, kind of varies on the persona you're speaking to.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
just to highlight that, like this is just more from my experience and like even social media, they say like Instagram reels or whatever are like actually viewed 80% without any sound. Like most people are in meetings or like in stuff where they can't like put their phone on loud. And so I think that's why text messages works. It's very quick. Whereas like even I know when I get a voicemail from someone, I'm sort of sitting there like I want to put it on 2 times speed so they can hurry up and get to the punchline. And I think a text message does that.
hell yeah. Great start too. Folks, we're going to wrap there, but one thing to check out, and Kayla, maybe drop this one in the chat. Kayla has just launched a YouTube series on performance mindset and sales and sports. So covering her journey across both tech sales, Ironmans, crazy ultra marathons. So definitely check that out if like either of those things are kind of up your alley. I guess for folks who, kind of newer to what we do, bit about early work high level is like, we started Australia's first sales school and essentially run 2 programs. One is to help people land sales jobs, and one is to help people get better at sales. So if you're kind of looking for a sales job, we have a free program called the Sales Employment Pathway that's helps 500 folks land jobs in sales and kind of typically with like 6-figure total earnings across both tech and other industries, typically SDR and BDR roles designed for kind of juniorish folks. And then separately, more recently, we launched a program to help folks already in sales upskill to kind of book more meetings and close more deals. So it's called our Sales Accelerator program. We kind of cover 10 weeks of content across some of the channels you mentioned today, like LinkedIn, email, phone, a healthy mix of them, but then also some of the stuff around discovery, pitching, demos, etc. And I teach that program personally. So if either of those interest you in terms of finding a job, getting more training, welcome to shoot me a LinkedIn message after watching this. But otherwise, love to have you all on. The next event coming up that we've got next Wednesday is Confident Closing with Lauren Fong, who is the top account executive at Tracksuit in ANZ last quarter. So definitely recommend coming to that if you're looking at more the later part of the funnel. Sweet. Ciao for now, and connect with myself and Kayla on LinkedIn if you're not already. Adios.